Hi, and welcome to Life on and Off the Mats Whole Life Coaching Program. I'm Alex. Most of you know that by now. And this is Lesson 1. A great day starts the night before. If you are on the live call, some of this will be review, but I think it's still worthwhile watching anyway and getting that review. And if you weren't on the live call, no worries. I'm going to cover everything in this lesson that we talked about on our first live call. So the first thing I want to do is give you just a very brief lesson in Ayurveda. This is not an Ayurveda course. It's not designed to be an Ayurveda course. If you're interested in learning more about Ayurveda, I will be launching my new course, Ayurveda for the Modern Yogi, pretty soon. I don't know exactly when, but you're all on my email list, so stay tuned for more on that. But for this course, the reason that it's important to know just a little bit about Ayurveda is the whole first part of the course, the health part of the course, is based on my studies in Ayurveda. So just a very little working knowledge of Ayurveda will help you to understand what we're doing here. So if you have never heard of Ayurveda before, don't worry. I'm going to tell you what it's all about. Ayurveda is known as the sister science of yoga. To me, that's a little bit of a misnomer because to me, Ayurveda is part of yoga. It's not really yoga's sister, it's part of yoga. And it is the diet and lifestyle practices of yoga, also the off the mat practices of yoga. Thus, my name for this program, Life on and Off the Mat. It's teaching us to be yogis on and off the mat. And if you don't have an on the mat yoga practice, that's okay. You don't have to run out to your closest yoga studio and sign up. I know some of you do yoga, some of you don't do yoga, as what we call yoga in the modern world is classes, physical postures. That's just part of it. There's a lot more to it. And so what we're doing here is we're going to work on the off the mat practices of yoga. So Ayurveda literally means the science of life. Ayur means life, Veda means study. So we're studying life. And really what we're doing here. We are learning to approach our lives and our health in a scientific fashion. Ayurveda has a lot of crossover with traditional Chinese medicine, which is a little more well known in the West. So if you've ever been to an acupuncturist or you know anything about TCM, there are a lot of crossovers. But TCM is more from China, Japan, and Ayurveda is originated in India. Ayurveda is said to be anywhere between 2,000 and 5,000 years old. It's actually older than traditional Chinese medicine. It is the oldest of any medical and health system. It was passed down verbally from teacher to student for many, many, many years and wasn't written down really probably until the late 1800s. When the British came in and ruled India, Ayurveda kind of went underground. The British were not into that. They were more into Western medicine. Ayurveda wasn't lost, thankfully, but it wasn't well known and it wasn't much used until India gained its independence from Britain, and then it kind of had a resurgence and started coming over here to the West. So Ayurveda is based on ways of eating. It's based on habits. Ayurvedic daily habits are called dinacharya. It's based on living with the seasons and living with the rhythms of nature. So that's really what Ayurveda is all about. And Ayurveda has what we call doshas, which are energetic qualities that exist in everything. They exist in people, they exist in seasons, they exist in times of life, they exist in times of day. We are all made up of all three of the doshas, although most people have one dominant, one secondary, and then one tertiary. That's a lot less. And I'll post a dosha quiz for you on the forum. I'll actually post a couple of them, and you can take those quizzes and just kind of know what your constitution is or what your dosha is. That'll be helpful throughout the program. And again, doshas also exist in seasons, and so we're going to talk about that too. And doshas also exist in times of day, times of life. So the three doshas are known as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And if you took any anatomy in school or even in biology, this is probably introduced. It's similar to the terms of ectomorph, endomorph, and mesomorph. Similar, but not exactly the same. Vata being the ectomorph, Pitta being the mesomorph, and Kapha being the endomorph. So I'm going to give you a little explanation of what these doshas are. So we'll start with Kapha. All of the doshas are related to the five elements, which are water, earth, fire, air, and ether. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. So Kapha is made up of earth and water. Kapha's qualities are heavy, sticky, damp. It's related to late winter and spring. When you think about the snow starting to melt, the ground getting wet and heavy, those are the qualities of spring. The times of day are 6 to 10, both AM and PM, which I'll talk a little bit more about once we get into the earlier, lighter dinner and that aspect. In humans, Kaphas are the most loving, grounded, sweet, kind people. They're connectors. If you have a friend who just like everybody wants to hang out with, that's your Kapha friend. If you have kids and there's like one house that everybody wants to hang out with, you can bet the mom is probably a Kapha. They're connectors. They're loving. They're nurturing. When they go out of balance, Kaphas tend towards depression, weight gain, lethargy. So to keep Kapha balanced are going to be more energetic activities. So that's as much as I'm going to explain right now. As we go through the program, you'll learn more, but I just want to give you very brief explanations right now. Pitta, the next dosha, is associated with earth and fire. Water and fire. Pitta is qualities are hot and sharp. People who are Pitta tend to be very smart, good speakers, good leaders. Pitta is associated with summer. Pitta is associated with the times of 10 to 2, both AM and PM. When Pittas go out of balance, they tend towards anger, they tend towards heartburn, they tend towards rashes and skin breakouts, they tend towards frustration. So cooling is what balances Pitta. And then there's Vata. Vata is associated with air and ether. If you don't know what ether is, it's also described as space. It's not the air that's in the space, it's the space itself. So Vata is associated with light, airy, movement, wind. People who have Vata qualities tend to be thin. Often they're cold all the time. They tend to be very creative, very spontaneous, tend to dislike routine, though they need routine. We'll also get more into how we tend to like the things that aren't necessarily the best for us. We'll get into that too, from a doshic and Ayurvedic perspective. Vata is associated with autumn and early winter, cold, dry. Think of leaves falling and blowing in the streets. That's Vata. When Vata goes out of balance in humans, Vata can be spacey. Vata tends towards anxiety. So calming and grounding is what Vata needs to balance it. And Vata is associated with the time of 2 to 6 a.m. and p.m. And again, that's not super important right now, but it'll get more important as we go along. So there's your Ayurveda lesson, 5,000 years of knowledge in less than 10 minutes. So, okay, earlier, lighter dinners, a good bedtime routine, and getting into bed early. Those are the 3 keys to starting your great tomorrow today. So why do we want to eat an earlier, lighter dinner? Well, a couple of things. As I mentioned, Pitta is fiery. Pitta is associated with digestion, and Pitta's time of day is 10 to 2. So really, our biggest meal should be in that time frame between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So our biggest meal should be lunch. We're not going to get too crazy about that right now, but that should be our biggest meal. And dinner should be supplemental. Dinner should be just a small something to just get you by so you're not starving when you go to sleep. And dinner should be completely digested by the time you go to sleep, because 10 p.m. then becomes Pitta time again in the evening, and you shouldn't be digesting then. You should be metabolizing. You should be done with your digestion. So you really, and then you'll feel lighter and more energetic, and it'll be easier for you to wake up if you haven't been spending your time sleeping and digesting your food at the same time, because you shouldn't be digesting while you're sleeping. You should be done, completely done with your digestion by the time you go to bed. So the ultimate goal here is to finish eating by 6 p.m. Now, if you're a late dinner eater, you might say that's impossible. Actually, somebody on our call last week said that's impossible for me. And that's okay that you think that. And it's because it's been a habit that you have cultivated over many, many years of eating a later dinner. And then there's also logistical problems to that too. My kids don't get home from practice until 7 o'clock at night. My honey doesn't get home from work until 7 o'clock at night. I don't get home from work until 7 o'clock at night. There are always going to be obstacles. But what we're doing here is trying to work with and work through those obstacles. So what I'm going to tell you is, if you're used to eating late, don't suddenly make a drastic change. What we're going to do all throughout this program is a process called Kaizen. It's small, continuous improvements for big change, for big results. So just think about taking tiny baby steps, making it so easy that you can't not do it. So what you're going to do, if you're used to eating dinner, say you eat dinner at 9 o'clock every night, you're going to, a couple times a week, try to have dinner by 8:45. 15 minutes. That should be doable. A couple times a week. That should be doable. And just stick with that for a little while. Don't go crazy with it. Don't push it to the point that you're not going to do it. And then after you get comfortable with that, then maybe add in another day of eating earlier. And then, or maybe push it back to 8:30. It may take you 6 months to get to the point of eating an earlier, lighter dinner all the time. It may take longer than that. And it's not something that you can't break ever. Sometimes I eat a late dinner. Sometimes I eat a big dinner. But most of the time, more than 50% of the time, I eat an earlier, lighter dinner, and I feel better in the morning when I do. I know that there's a trade-off if I eat later. I know if I have a heavy, late dinner, I'm not going to be as energetic in the morning. So I ask myself, is it worth it? And sometimes it is. And sometimes it isn't. So that's what you're going to start doing, is just asking yourself if it's worth it. Ask yourself how you feel. Try it a little bit and see how you feel. And most people have found, at least most people that I've worked with, is that they feel so much better after having an earlier, lighter dinner that they figure out a way to make it happen as often as they can. I can pretty much guarantee you, you're going to feel so much better. So try it. Take it slow. use Kaizen. Also, if you're used to eating a heavy dinner, a big dinner, don't suddenly go from like steak and potatoes to a little bowl of miso soup, because that's not going to be sustainable either. Maybe just make your dinner a little bit smaller. And then after you get used to that, maybe make it a little bit smaller. Smaller doesn't have to mean tiny immediately. And it'll be different in different seasons too. Where I live, and I think where the majority of you live, it's pretty cold in the winter and spring. So you're going to probably eat a little bit heavier dinner in the winter and spring. In the summer, this becomes much easier to not eat that much and to eat early and then go out and play afterwards. So again, it's all an experiment. You'll hear me say over and over and over again, use your body as a science experiment. And that's what we're doing here. We're experimenting. If you start eating an earlier, lighter dinner and you don't feel better, well, that's fine too. Good information to have. But I think that you will. Okay, so the next step after you've had your earlier, lighter dinner is to have a bedtime routine that is going to be conducive to sleep. After dinner, if the weather is nice, it's great to just go out for a walk. Take your dog for a walk with your family, walk by yourself. If you can get into nature in the woods, even better, or just a walk around the neighborhood. Not a hard workout late in the evening, but just get out and move. Help yourself digest. If it's summer, go out and garden. Just something to move your body a little bit. If it's winter, well, any time of year, but this tends to be more of a problem in the winter, get off your screens as early as you can, at least a couple hours before bedtime. If you read on your iPad, which I do, make sure that you have the nighttime setting or get the nighttime glasses, because those screens are keeping you awake. They're activating part of your brain that's going to keep you awake, and you don't want that in the evening. Do you ever notice, like if you're in bed and you're tired and you don't feel like getting up, you pick up your phone, you get on Facebook for a minute or two, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I'm wide awake now, ready to get up. That's what it does to you. So also, don't do work. Don't do brain work. If you're going to read a novel, read something spiritual, read something uplifting. Don't read, a business book. Don't read something that's going to stress you out. Don't do work. And again, Kaizen here still. If you're used to answering emails till 10 o'clock at night, try to get off a little bit earlier. If you're used to watching TV before bed, try to turn off the TV a little bit earlier. If you have a TV in your bedroom, get rid of it. Take it out. I know that you don't want to do that, but you should. That's all I'm going to say on that. So we want to start dimming the lights. We want to start, maybe you want to meditate in the evening. Maybe you want to give your honey a back rub, give your kids a back rub, or get a back rub from your honey or your kids. Just relaxing, connecting time. We're going into, here I'm going to grab my giant whiteboard. Hopefully you can see this. Okay, so here are our times of day and what's going on in those times of day. So when we're getting into the evening here, we're getting into kapha time. Remember I said kaphas are connectors. Good time to connect with your family. Hug, snuggle, have sex, relax. This is connection time. And then getting ready to go to sleep. And we want to get to sleep, ideally, before 10 p.m. Why is that? Well, from a biological perspective, it's because human beings are diurnal creatures. We're primates. All primates are diurnal creatures. We are not nocturnal creatures. So I can hear some of you right now going, not me, I'm a night owl. If you are a night owl, again, it's a habit that you have cultivated over years and years and years. And it's a habit that can and should be undone. So here's what happens. You're in kapha time, this like heavy, lovely, cuddly, sleepy time. And then 10 p.m., you get back into pitta time. You ever get that second wind after 10 p.m.? It's because you're back in pitta time. Pitta is shot and hot and sharp and active, and that's why you start doing work and you can't get to sleep, because you're in pitta time. You want to be asleep before you get into pitta time so you can start metabolizing. You can start cleaning house. You want to be asleep during the second pitta time during the day so your body can do what it's supposed to do when you're sleeping. So that is why earlier to bed. And again, I'm sure that some of you are saying, that's not me, that's not going to work for me, I don't go to sleep early. And again, try it. Try it a couple days a week. Try just a little bit earlier. If you go to bed at midnight, I'm not going to tell you to dial it back by 2 hours all of a sudden. Dial it back by 10, 15 minutes. See how that goes. And keep working at it a couple times a week if you can. And it won't be easy at first. If you get into bed earlier than you're used to going to bed, you might lie there awake for a little while. But again, this is something that is going to benefit you in the long run. So it might be a little challenging at first, but you know what? Pretty much anything worthwhile is challenging. One of my favorite teachers always likes to say, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not evolving. And that is truth from what I have found. So the goal is to be in bed with your eyes closed and your lights out by 10 p.m., but that doesn't mean it has to happen tomorrow. Just start it out slow. And this will start to make sense when we get into lesson 2, which is about starting our day right and why we're starting it the night before, so when we get up in the morning, we can start the day right. So anyway, that is today's lesson. I thank you so much for being here. I encourage you to try it, especially if you're like, that's not me, that's not my thing. Try it. Please report on the forum how things are going, and we will talk again really, really soon. Thanks, you guys.